we prefer to use the terms PWD or Persons with Disabilities. And we also learned that there are certain individuals who don't like to be called person with different abilities because you're putting them in a box and you're saying that they are different than the public or the society, even though there are those who prefer those terms, but majority formally should be PWD lah, because you're addressing that they have a disability but they are capable.
It is not always that we meet someone who dedicates her life to helping people with disabilities. I'm pleased to have with me today Armani Shahrin, founder of NAKSENI, which is a social enterprise dealing with art merchandise produced from artwork by people with disabilities. Armani, welcome to Ask the Boss.
Thank you very much. Just to introduce myself, I am a late 30s woman, Malay woman with shoulder length hair. I'm wearing a black t-shirt with an orange and purple and green orchid with batik pants that is purple and pink, and I have on a bracelet that looks like grapes, like green grapes. So that was an inclusive introduction that we try to practice when we have events or when we have podcasts or interviews. This is also to help our viewers or listeners who are visually impaired or maybe those who are driving. And yeah, so that's something that I learned as I was working with NAKSENI throughout the years.
Right. And if I can reintroduce myself.
Sure.
I am a Malay woman with shoulder-length hair, wearing a brown dress, brown slippers, brown shoes. Yeah. I've got to practice at that, to make this podcast more inclusive.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. First and foremost, what is the correct terminology to use when you describe people with disabilities or different abilities?
Yeah, I think you perfectly did it just now. For NAKSENI, we prefer to use the terms PWD or Persons with Disabilities. And we also learned that there are certain individuals who don't like to be called person with different abilities because you're putting them in a box and you're saying that they are different than the public or the society, even though there are those who prefer those terms, but majority formally should be PWD lah, because you're addressing that they have a disability but they are capable. And there are also terms like the ones that are already, should I say, backdated terms that even though it's not updated, some people are using it because in the past they've been using that word. So we need to always check what is it that that person prefers to use when we're talking to them or we're talking about them. That's why the purpose of the inclusive introductions is very helpful when you meet someone to talk about that topic.
Okay, and how did you get yourself working with PWDs? Okay, if I use the short form, PWDs, for persons with disabilities. Yeah, how did you start getting involved with working with PWDs?
So I have to give credit to my mom, Puan Zuraini Anwar. She's the one who started this collective called WNI Art. And WNI Art had started in 2017, where they brought in artworks from my sister and her friends. So my sister Izati, she has autism and Down syndrome, and she was, at the time, she didn't want to do an exhibition alone. So she was invited to host an exhibition. My mom was to bring her there, and she said, I want to bring my friends. So that's when Haziq, Maria, Yuri, Azari came into picture. And at the time, we haven't established anything yet. So I was working with a company called My Performing Arts Agency. So we were doing this arts conference. and we gave them space to do the exhibition. On that exhibition, we didn't highlight that it was artists with disabilities. We just said, there's this new exhibition going on, come and have a look. And people who visited, they said, wow, this is really good. Like, can you do it again? So then my mom decided to do it every year. And every year we did it for International Day of Persons with Disabilities in December, up until COVID happened. So when COVID happened, we couldn't do any physical events. We couldn't do any booths or performances or anything that we used to do with VNI. So I started NAKSENI online because I was working for an e-commerce platform at the time. So I picked up a few things. And throughout the pandemic, we started pushing things out on social media. We started doing awareness campaigns about the artists. And slowly after the pandemic, people were interested to work with them. People were interested to buy more products. And we had more parents come in with their children and say, hey, can you put their artworks for NAKSENI? Can you make them one of the artists? So now we have, alhamdulillah, up to 12 artists on our website.
And how much are you involved in procuring or encouraging PWDs, the artists in NAKSENI, to produce art in order for you to turn them into merchandise?
So one of the things that I have to put like a disclaimer, we're not an academy. We don't, we develop the artists' careers, but we don't develop the artistry themselves. So what we do is we get the artwork from the parents, and some of them are already established artists. Some of them are really good artists, but maybe the parents have day jobs, and maybe the parents are not well versed in the branding and art industry. And on their side, we try to help them to market for the artists. And then sometimes the parents might look at one artwork and say, oh, it's not nice, so I'm not going to put that. But when we go and see it, we're like, oh, that's really good. So we take it for the exhibition, and we try to curate for them. So with my mom's help as well, because we also have partners who are, some are volunteers, some are partners that work with other NGOs and social enterprise. Some of them are from the industry themselves. We have curators, we have marketing, branding volunteers. I have to say that NAKSENI was very lucky in that sense, because we were exposed to this kind of thing, and we were supported by the community of the parents and as well of the artists and our partners. We are a very small company, so everything that we do is very close-knit. So it started with just parents. So now, since NAKSENI is taking over, like I'm taking over with my colleagues, there's only officially 3 of us. So everyone's playing like double hats when it comes to procuring the artworks and trying to figure out what looks good on the product. And we work very closely with the client depending on what they want as well.
Yeah, you must be doing a very good job, because huge corporates are asking NAKSENI to produce merchandise for them.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
We learn from there as well, because our ambition is very big, but we only have certain capacity. So when corporates come in and they give us, oh, they want to do this and this and this, and we're like, okay, now we can do this project. So we try to work together with them. But at the same time, we know that because we were not brought up in a society where it's normalized for us to work with people, with persons with disabilities, we have to educate our clients as well. And we try to do it in a way that they still get to do what they want with the artist's artworks, but at the same time, we keep the integrity. So we don't just say like, oh, we don't do a charity-based model. We highlight them as artists first before we look at their conditions or, who they are. Yeah.
And you have some samples of artwork and merchandise over there.
I actually have quite a few. So let's start with the one in front first. So we have our regular items, products, which I would say what I like to bring is the notebooks. Our notebooks from our three or 4 artists from VNI Art. So this is Hazik's artwork. What we do is we print out products based on the original artworks, whether it's the full artwork or partial side of the artwork. So this is actually a full artwork of Haziq Izmi's artwork. This is Cafe Street. So what we produced was this just a simple blank notebook, and there's information about NAKSENI inside, and there's a QR code with Haziq's website. So every artist gets their own page. So all the information about artists is there. Some of the samples of the artworks are there. And at the back, because this is a WNI initiative as well, so we put WNI's website at the back. And this is something that we propose to corporates if they have door gifts or if they have events and they want to put their logo on it. So we can also do that as well with all of our items. Actually, anything that's printed, we can put their logos. So we also did mugs and packages, but I only brought this today.
I can see why you're promoting them as artists first, because at first glance, I wouldn't guess that it's art by a person with disability.
Yes.
They look really pretty when that box over there.
So this box is actually our Raya package. Should I pick it up as graceful as possible?
Can I hold on to that?
Yeah, this one. Okay. So this box actually has Izzati's painting on it, and it's just a cover for a set of 4 items that we curated together with 2 other social enterprise and NGOs. Okay. Right, figure out. Open this. So, as I mentioned, we work with other partners. This is healthy black sesame cookies, which are gluten-free, from 71. So 71 is another social enterprise that works with the PWDs as well. So they train to make cookies, to make crafts, and they sell them on behalf. So 71 has been, we meet with them and we work with them with certain booths throughout the year. So we like to support each other. So I put his 71's cookies in our Raya package along together with a Raya packet with sign language icons where you can learn ABCs from the front and the numbers on the back. So this is actually by Sign On Malaysia. They are teaching classes on Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia, so Malaysian Sign Language. And I learned this recently. There's different types of sign language throughout. Yeah, so if you learn online, it could be ASL, American Sign Language. And then you try to use it here, it's different. So the meanings might change. So there are similarities, but mostly Malaysians use BIM, Malaysian Sign Language. So that's what we try to bring into our events.
And this is very interesting. It's educational as well.
Yeah.
I would be interested to learn. Yeah, interesting.
So when we had events with NAKSENI and our community, some of our partners were also in the PWD community. They will do workshops like sign language, and they will do movement workshops. And we always invite non-PWDs to come as well, just to be exposed and not be afraid to do things with them. The other items that are in the box, these are NAKSENI items. So this first one, I'm holding a small pouch with artwork by Zulaiha Zulkapli. So Zulaiha is actually a deaf artist, and this artwork, it's a kampong house ladang, and I stole by my mom because she was curating the exhibition. Zulaiha is a self-taught artist, so she didn't go for classes, and she was actually not born as a deaf person. And when she paints, she remembers the sounds. So it reminds her of the sound of the wind, the sound of the leaves through the trees and everything. So we found that very touching. When we want to talk about her artwork, we have to mention that because, that's her essence. And one of her paintings was also bought by our ex-PM. She did a painting of batik, kain batik with I think a river or waterfall in the back. So it looked as if it was moving. It looked like a photograph when you see it in person, but it's actually acrylic paint.
Yeah. It's very pretty.
Yes. Yeah. And the last item in the box is actually a tote bag.
Mm-hmm.
So this tote bag is by Yuri Azari.
Mm-hmm.
And we call this set Ladang because
Mm-hmm.
it's a painting of Ladang, paddy field. And he is also one of the pioneering artists from WNI Art.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 2 sets actually for Raya. Yeah, the other set has Izati's bag.
Mm-hmm.
So the other set is called Set Pantai. This is actually my sister's artwork of beach house.
Mm-hmm.
So she's very colorful. So all her characters have a certain look, and her kampong house has different colors. Like there's blue, yellow, red. Because usually when we paint kampong houses, it's just brown, right? So she sees it differently, and she's got her sea creatures of different colors. So it's very rainbow colored. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
So all the artworks that you see in this box, including the box itself, has its original paintings that are either for sale or have already been sold.
I see.
Yeah.
Right. So, like you were, I'm really interested because you were saying this artist, when she painted this, she was imagining the sounds of the leaves, the breeze.
This is what I was told by my mom when she curated the art exhibition. So when Zulaiha paints, it reminds her of when she could hear all the sounds of the water, the trees, and the...
Right. She wasn't deaf before.
She wasn't born deaf, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. And this one, okay, this painting.
Yeah, this is a special painting that my sister made for me on my birthday. Because so she went into a phase where she started painting animals. So she had cats, butterfly, and elephants. So I asked her, can you make me a seahorse? Because I was into seahorses at the time. And she's like, okay. And I said, I want it purple because purple is my favorite color. And this is what she came up with. And I haven't decided whether I want to make products or sell it because this is a personal item. But I just thought I would bring it today just to show what she's done. So yeah, she's very thoughtful, and she knows that I also like blue, so she put in blue in the scales, and I like how she has her signature rainbow color lines, and her painting has this seahorse, this colorful seahorse against silver and gold striped background. So interesting story about Izati. When she was painting, we take her to buy her paints, and I know that acrylic paints are not very cheap. So me being the business-minded elder sister, I will go like, are you sure you want to buy? And then she'll pick all the neon colors, and I'm looking at it thinking, is she going to use that, or is she going to keep it? Or is like, I don't want to waste money. And she turns around and tells me and my mom, saya tahulah, saya artis. It's like, I know what colors I want. I'm the artist. So that just completely, like, that was the first time I got taken aback. Like, oh, she knows, she has autonomy over what she wants to paint, what she wants to do. She knows this is her career. So she takes pride in it. So she is an artist. So I found that very, it's very nice to see. It's very nice to see that with NAKSENI or with We and I, anything that we do gave her that encouragement to be confident with what she wants to do. And she becomes an example for all the other artists that we bring on board as well, for all the other artists that are aspiring to be like her. So, yeah.
It's something that she owns.
Something that she owns, yes.
Yeah. Sharing your experience with your sister, what are the challenges with working with people with disabilities?
Okay. Personally, with my sister, for me, it's more of the stigma that when I bring her in public settings, those who are not familiar with the persons with disabilities or with Izati per se, they don't know her, and they see her because she's so high functioning, or when she can talk to you, like they think that when she has her stims, or when she goes like psh, or she starts talking to you and pointing at your face, they think she's angry at them. But that's actually her way of regulating herself. And for those who are not familiar or they're not exposed, they get scared. They get scared. They don't want to sit next to her, or they don't want to be around her. They just stare at her. So that's something that my mom and I, and even my brother, try to not keep her away from. So she has to be exposed. Like it or not, she's going to grow up. She's going to be an adult that has to go into society. So she has to deal with this kind of things. Another challenge is that when we want to work with artists with disabilities, and not all of them have the opportunity to be educated or to be exposed to activities or equipment or therapy that a lot of the private companies or private clinics are running, we have to kind of advocate for that as well. We kind of have to give them a fair chance to say, hey, there are certain ways for you to talk to them. There are certain ways for you to work with them. So we open it up to the public or any non-PWD person who wants to work with us, which helps the community get used to feeling safe with them. Because a lot of the parents, they are afraid to let their children participate in certain programs that don't say it's specific to PWDs. So when we have our events, we mention that, okay, we have our calm room, we have our timeout space, or we have clinical psychologists on ground just to, in case there's anything. So when we have little accommodations for the parents and the artists themselves, then the parents feel more at ease. And then if we have it frequently, then they will get more independent. So the reason why I said having it frequently is because when you're working with people on the autism spectrum, they're very routine based. Like Izati, she took a long time to go swimming, to get in the pool. So when we were kids, my dad would take us to the clubhouse, in this golf club, and she will sit at the side of the pool, and she'll just put her legs in, and she won't go in for the longest time, for weeks and weeks, and then I don't know how long. One fine day she'll go in, because she'll just watch me, she'll watch all the other children, and I was just swimming, and I always look at her and say, Izati, come in, and then she'll, no. So that's what we did with NAKSENI when we had our pop-up at Museum Telecom in 2021. Every week we had events, and every week the events will consist of activities for the PWDs as well. So when they got used to that every week, they started developing their confidence. So the artists like Lim Soe, Andy Miranti, when I first met them, they had headphones on, and Andy even had a mask on, and they couldn't look at me in the eye when I first met, because they're very shy. But when we have activities with them, and they get used to it, and they get used to the facilitators, and they feel more confident. So today you can see them, they come up to you and go, hi kakak, and they come up to you and they can even talk about their artworks themselves. And it was very refreshing to see. And on the other side as well, apart from the PWD artists, we have friends and partners who run workshops like movement therapy, or like there's this group called Empathy for Youth, where they work together with theatre practices. So the idea was to teach the participants how to communicate with each other without feeling discriminatory. Or one of the activities was how to request for your item. You have a sentimental item that you want to request back from this person, whether they're a friend or a family member. How do you ask for it back? And there was Soe and Andy, and then there was our friends, the non-PWD participants, were all asking questions like, okay, what's the context here? Who am I to this person? How much is the item valued? And all these questions. But when it came to Soe and Andy, it was just, can I have it back? Yeah, sure. And it was as simple as that. And that was the most like eye-opening thing to us. Even our friends like we so overthink everything, but for them it's so simple. They're so innocent. And so we actually turned to our facilitator and said, yeah, I'm autistic. I'm very straightforward. So that's the kind of thing that we slowly learn along the way.
So it's essential for the public to treat PWDs as normal people, right?
Yeah.
Don't overthink.
Don't
Just
overthink. Yeah.
Like you were mentioning earlier to me, when you see a person with disability and her minder or his minder,
A carer or
a carer, you ask, if you want to ask any question, you ask the PWD directly. You don't have to ask the carer.
Yes.
Yeah, and that will make them feel more comfortable, more inclusive, more confident being in public. Yeah.
Yes. Even
Yeah.
even when if I'm speaking to someone who, like Zulaiha, if I don't know sign language, I will still talk to her and her interpreter will translate for her, but I will look at her, not at her interpreter, because I'm talking to her. Because it doesn't feel natural to, turn and talk to the interpreter, but you're actually addressing her. So one is out of respect, another one is you're socializing. So even when I'm talking to you right now, I can't look at another person if I'm addressing you. So those are things that we were not taught in school. Those were things that we were not taught to normalize unless you're in the community. Yeah.
So in terms of emotional development, behavioral development, I know that equine therapy or horse riding helps a lot. Can we say the same for art and craft?
I would say yes. Because like you mentioned, when they go horse riding, or it's very sensory based, and it's also somewhat connecting with another person. In that case, it was connected with a horse, but in arts and crafts, you're building something together, and when you make something together, when you create something together, you have a sense of community, and you have to communicate with the person, whether the person is nonverbal or not. There's other ways to communicate, and you might find that you have similarities. Maybe when you're doing artwork, you're doing maybe a painting of a kampong house or something, and she might like Izzati might draw something in her perspective that might have opened your mind, and she might also look at yours and learn from you. So that's also one of the things that we try to encourage in our workshops and with our facilitators as well. Some of them started having no knowledge about PWDs, but when they did workshops with us, they started learning and they started doing. One of them decided to get certified to be an art therapist specifically for PWDs. So it's like a domino effect. Once you start something, there's always going to be curiosity. There's always going to be something new you can learn. Yeah. And it's helpful for them because they also feel accepted. They also feel like, well, I can make new friends and I can do this and show them my skills. Or they can be proud, like Izzati's proud of being an artist. She can say, oh yeah, I'm an artist. This is my art. What do you do?
And I'm sure it really boosts their morale as well when their products get sold. Yeah,
it does. One of our clients in the past was Sami Putra Mall, where they invited Izzati and Haziq to do a mural. There was a crescent-shaped moon for Raya, and that was the first time we did something big like that. And Haziq came for the launching, and they asked him, Haziq, how do you feel? It was just a normal, like, Haziq, how do you feel after doing this paint? Everybody likes your artwork. And Haziq usually doesn't say anything when we have, big events, unless you speak directly to him. But he was so happy. You could see him beaming, and he was like, my mom's going to be proud of me. And he didn't say, oh, I'm happy. He just said, my mom is going to be proud of me because I did this. So that was very, like, a big moment, even though it was a small gesture, but it was a big moment for us to hear him say something like that. Yeah.
And support from family members,
Definitely.
mother, father, siblings, that counts a lot for PWDs.
It does, because the first line of defense, I would say, is the parents, the siblings as well. When parents are not sure what to do with their potential of the artist's potential, then it's very dangerous, because if you keep them away from society too long, then how do they develop? As they grow older, they might not be able to communicate with society. Society might not know how to work with them, and it's going to be always separated. So we try, but we also understand that there's also difficulty on their side. Not everyone, like I said, is trained or is exposed, so it's not difficult, even for me, to always work with PWDs and advocate for them when we're not, we're just going against the grain, if you may call that. So when we are doing something that is out of the norm, it's hard for people to accept it unless they have an open mind. Going back to the family, so family members are what opens doors for them. So if, let's say, this artist has really good potential, but they're not exposed to the art industry and the parents keep them away, we can't develop for them. We can't force the parents to say, hey, give me that artwork. We can make this better, or, let us take over, unless they allow it. So we always ask the parents, like, okay, what do you want to do with this? Can we do this with them? And can the artist come and do interviews? Can the artist come and do appearances? Some of them are uncomfortable. Some of them are saying, no, I don't want people to see, or I don't want them to make fun of my child. So we understand that. And for us to create a safe environment for them, we have to first educate the public. So slowly with artworks, I feel like arts and craft is the first or the easiest for us to connect with society, because it's not specific to PWDs. Anyone can appreciate art.
Yeah. And I think the role of corporates are very important, because that money packet over there, Hari Raya money packet.
So this is a collaboration with TM. TM approached us and asked for Izati, Yuri, Azari, and Maria Su's artwork for them to create into the Raya campaign. So this was actually designed by TM's team, and it's Raya packets that have QR that can be scanned and turn into AR, that they can animate the artworks. So this was a very not tough, but it was an interesting challenge for us, because we had to keep the integrity of the artworks, and we also had to allow exploration. We were toying with the idea, like, what happens if we give the artists artwork to corporates to like play around with? Like, would it take away the value of the artwork, or so we had to really sit down with the team and see, like, and really understand what they're doing, and see that they actually just want to highlight that these artists are very talented. And a lot of people, a lot of corporates will be very semang and will very enthusiastic to write really beautiful things about our artists, but not everyone is educated with the right terminology. And it's very hard for us to tell someone who has been in the industry for the longest time, hey, what you're saying is wrong, because I'm not from that company, and I don't know what the norm is for them. So we have to be very careful about how we say things. So there has been a few conversations about what the questions that you asked me just now, whether it's differently abled, or persons with disabilities, or special needs, or so even though their campaign highlights them, we also help to educate in a subtle way. When we market NAKSENI products, we always want to push for the artworks first. We always want to push them. They identify as artists first before they identify as persons with disabilities. But when the public comes to us, or the public or corporates tend to reach out to us, like it or not, their first thought is always going to be, okay, I'm looking for specifically autistic artists, specifically artists with disabilities. But most of them, they don't really know what the artwork is like. So we have to show them first. So from there, then only they will say, oh, okay, they're actually talented in this aspect here and here. So then they will tell me, okay, I want something that is Malaysian theme, or I want something that's abstract, or so then we can curate for them. But most of the time, not any specific corporate company, but in general, a lot of people will say, like, okay, isn't it? Why is it so expensive? Because other NGOs, they sell at a lower price because of the maybe the artwork's different, maybe the business model is different, so that's why the price range. But for us, we put it at a premium price because we're selling art. So that's one of the conversations we have with corporates as well. You want to get their artwork, or you just want to get the name, of, oh, okay, I've hired them because they're people with disabilities. So a lot of our clients that we work with, they understand that. That's why we work with them. They understand that, okay, we are not just working with them because they're OKU. or just
You're
because
getting some really good art.
yes, you're getting good art and it's quality art that and you can brand it in your way. So alhamdulillah, this year a lot of the corporate clients that we get understand that. When we first started, it was a bit tough, so we had to go through conversations like that behind the scenes, of course. Yeah.
I noticed at NAKSENI there are artists which are wheelchair users.
Yes, yeah.
Do they suffer from neurodivergent traits or learning disabilities as well?
So the artist that you mentioned actually is Iha. Iha is from the rare disorder community. So she has what we would call brittle bone disease. I'm so sorry, I can't remember the scientific name, but there's a very long name. What happens with her is that, let's say we have a fall and then we have a graze, we can easily if it's not a strong fall, we don't have to go for operation or anything. For her, any little accident may require her to go to the OR, to the operation room, so for surgery. So it's very dangerous for her to be out. And for her to create art is also a challenge. So we always value the intricate designs that she gives us. So back to your question is whether she has a learning disability or neurodivergent traits. To us, it doesn't really matter whether she is neurodivergent or not, because she identifies as a disabled person and she faces that challenge. She doesn't get the opportunity to go out and show people her art herself. Unless she has a guardian. So, and it's also taxing on the family, So what NAKSENI is doing is we're trying to expose her artwork as well. We're trying to give opportunity to not just Izzati and her friends and Iha, but also anyone who identifies as a disabled person and who wants to pursue art as a career. So we try to help them in that way.
Because when I see some people on the wheelchair, they're perfectly fine, as in except for the wheelchair.
Yeah,
it looks like they can function typically, participate typically in society, but because they identify themselves as a person with disability, that is why they go under NAKSENI, because it gives them the confidence, I suppose.
Yes, and going back to whether they have a learning disability or whether they have neurodivergent traits or not, when you are physically disabled, it doesn't mean that you have that. I think you're asking me two questions. So for NAKSENI, we don't choose only the learning disabled or neurodivergent artists. It just so happens that Izzati's friends, more of them. We do work with wheelchair users and people who have physical disabilities when the project arises, and we also try to give them a platform to talk about what they do for work, because a lot of our friends are wheelchair users and they have jobs with corporates. They have their own companies. They run their own like coffee pop-up and stuff. The only thing is they're physically disabled, so they have certain requirements when we have events, like to make sure if there's going to be steps, we have to put a ramp. If there's going to be if Zulaiha is coming, we try to make sure there's either captions or sign language interpreters, and it's a matter of accommodating. So I think more of to answer for NAKSENI, we don't choose based on your disability, but we choose on your potential of the artwork. Like I said, we're highlighting artists.
Yes, selling art first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's inclusive.
We try to be as inclusive as possible.
Yeah, and that brings me to this other venture that you're doing. It's called Inclusity.
Inclusity.
It's very interesting. I love the name, Inclusity.
Inclusity is a combination of the words inclusive and cities. This was a project that we incubated under NAKSENI because one of the things that we do after the pandemic, we're always going to be participating in WNI Art Fest in December. One of the challenges that we found, regardless whether it's Art Fest or Art Jam or the workshops, it's so difficult to find venues that are accessible for our PWDs, because we have a range when we don't know who's going to come. So sometimes we have wheelchair users, sometimes we have, our autistic artists coming in. We did have our participants from the blind community as well. So these are things that as we go along, we realize we have to keep calling spaces and ask, hey, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have, even just to host a dinner, we had Chinese New Year dinner one day, and then I asked, do you have a step to go in your restaurant? Because my friend is a wheelchair user and she's using this electric wheelchair. So there's the wheelchair that is electric and the normal manual wheelchair. It differs by weight. So if it's just a pushing wheelchair, we can help to carry her. But if she's using an electric wheelchair, it's very tough because the battery pack is heavy. And it can spoil her wheelchair if you put it up in the wrong angle. So these were the things that we experienced. And a lot of the venues or restaurants say, yes, we're accessible. And we go on Google and we see that the sign that says, yes, it's accessible. But when we go there, the restaurant is accessible, but in front of the restaurant, there's a step, and that doesn't belong to the restaurant. And when we talk to the venue owners, they say, oh, that's the building management, or that's DBKL, or that's, a different. So that becomes a challenge for us, and not just as people maybe who want to bring their senior parents or grandmothers, babies with mothers with strollers, baby strollers. So we started Inclusity to identify where are the places that our friends usually go, where are the places that we can go to host more events. And it became a pitching project to Think City. At the time, they had the Kuala Lumpur Urban Challenge, Creative Kuala Lumpur Urban Challenge. And we were just pitching the idea, and it was, the first time that we were doing something on accessibility. Because NAKSENI, of course, we focus more on arts, but it went hand in hand because we realized that as much as we try to talk to the venue owners, as much as we try to talk to other NGOs, it's been conversations that went on for years, and nobody dared to do anything about it, or nobody had the capacity to do it because they had other priorities. So we said, why not? And, so Inclusity started with support from Think City and Yayasan Hasana. And today, alhamdulillah, we have an app that is launched both on Apple Store, iOS, and for Android users in the Google Play Store. So you can actually download it now, and you can sign up and give reviews on whether there's a checklist you can fill up. This space has ramp, or maybe tactile ground surfaces, or what are the services that is provided. So the reason we're doing this is so that it's crowdsourced and not just from the Google information itself, because we know how hard it is to get updated information. Hopefully with this app, people will find it easier to identify places and also contribute to give other people information.
It'll also encourage owners of buildings or malls to make it more inclusive.
So that's an interesting statement. It's true, because when we were pitching Inclusity, one of the ideas we had was to do a walkabout. We had our first excursion after we got the grant from Think City. We did a walkabout from MRT Pasar Seni along Petaling Street, cross the road to Kasturi Walk next to Pasar Seni. So there was this social enterprise called Sustain. The place is called Sustain, social enterprise called Earth, Air and Sea Monkey Project. So they are also an event space that you can rent out and do things about, and they also promote items from apart from Sea Monkey Project, who does recycling of plastics and equipment. They have this 71 cookies there, you can buy it there, and there's other SEs there. So they're very supportive in our project. And when we went there, there was no ramp. It was on the first floor, there's a lift, but there's a step going down. And that is not their fault, because the building was created that way. And at the time, they hadn't had any wheelchair users visit yet. And when we told them, we're going to have this program, can you do this for us? How do we solve this? And Carlos, the founder for Sea Monkey Project, I think, Sea Monkey Project, came down, and he was the one who built a makeshift ramp for our our event that day. And after that event happened, they actually had, I think they spoke to a few professionals to talk about access auditing and see what they can do for the space. And it's something that we realize, if we do events more often in these kind of spaces and we bring our community, the venue owners themselves can see that, okay, there is a market here. I have to provide if I want to invite them, rather than telling me, oh, we're not accessible because PWDs don't come. It's like a chicken and egg situation. So the idea behind Inclusity is, yes, we want to list out the spaces, but we also want to encourage. But you don't have to wait for us to do things like that. You don't have to wait for us to host events, and you can do it yourselves. You can do it. The venue owners can do it themselves, or even anyone who wants to host can work together and encourage them to do it. And we know that this is not something new. This is something that has been going back and forth even before I was born. And there has been initiatives to do things like this. It's just that we're trying to bring it back and giving it a more artsy feel to it when we have our events for NAKSENI.
Yeah. And the artsy feel, there's more vibe to it.
Yes.
There's an encouragement for people to actually modify their buildings or make it more accessible. Because these paintings, well, the artwork, they're really impressive. And I'm so happy to be exposed to this. I wasn't exposed to it earlier until I met you, and I saw how you treated your sister. It was really nice.
Thank you.
So much of encouragement. And I can see that this will really develop PWDs in terms of behavior, in terms of confidence.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
I actually saw how their confidence grew and how independent they became.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Andy Miranti is one of the comic artists under NAKSENI. So he actually started talking about his art himself. We gave him the mic. He managed to talk about his experiences. Mm. He no longer wears his headphones when he comes for our events, and he is now in an online residency together with Izzati. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to plug in our upcoming event. So we have an online residency in collaboration with Sync Leadership. Mm-hmm. They're a UK-based company that works with people with learning disabilities. So they encourage Izzati and Andy and two other artists, Thompson and Charlotte, to create artwork online. Mm-hmm. And they're going to bring the artworks here, and we're going to display it at British Council in April. So that is going to be one of the first projects that we worked internationally, and hopefully will encourage more parents to allow the artists to develop into things like this and not just products, because they can also be leaders in their group.
Yeah. And I certainly am confident that you will just grow. NAKSENI is just going to grow.
I hope so.
Yeah, from something that you started during the pandemic to corporates calling you up to produce artwork. Something really amazing that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for giving space for Izzati and her friends to display their artwork as well. Yeah.